Hey folks, today I'm going to show you how I modified a set of Ikea roller blinds. I have these SKOGSKLÖVER blinds and I really dislike the look of having to mount blinds over the window trim. Since these blinds come in set sizes, I'm going to show you how I cut them down to fit inside the window jamb for a much more custom look on a really inexpensive blind. Follow along and you can learn from the mistakes I made, such as messing up simple math and not cutting them small enough. Nothing makes you better at something like doing it twice. Anyway, let's get to it. The math is pretty simple despite the fact that I screwed up. Write down how wide the blinds are that you bought, in my case 48 inches. Take a measurement on the inside of your window and subtract how much gap or reveal you want on either side. I wanted a 1/4 inch per side for a total of 1/2 inch smaller than my window opening. My jamb opening was 42 inches, and with a 1/2 inch subtracted, I want my blinds to be 41.5 inches. Subtract the new blind size from the old blind size, and that gives us the length we need to remove from the blinds. Again, in my case, 48 minus 41.5 equals 6.5 inches to be removed. The first step is going to be to disassemble the blinds. I removed one screw on either side to pull off the plastic end caps and top metal rail. You may notice that one end cap has a square shape on the inside and the other has what I will call an X shape or star shape. The X shape is connected to the spring mechanism that will hold the blind in the lowered position, as well as allow you to raise the blinds. The square side is connected to the damper mechanism, which will slow the blinds when you raise them up so they don't just snap immediately. Once the end caps are removed, I pried the damper mechanism out of the top tube with a flathead screwdriver. I then removed the end cap off the metal bar that the pull is connected to. That piece went flying and I got to spend 10 minutes looking for it under the couch. I slid the whole pull bar off and that is all I had to do for disassembly. Now it's time for some marking. I'm going to mark 6.5 inches on every piece that needs to be cut down. As long as that's kept consistent, the blinds should go back together properly. I measured and marked the extruded top bar and the handlebar for cutting and set those aside. Next I laid down a sheet of hardboard, as I plan to use a utility knife to cut the blind material itself. You could use a pair of scissors, but I felt I would get a straighter line with a knife and a straight edge. Anything that touches the blinds should be clean to keep them in good shape. I rolled out the entire blind and then marked 6.5 inches in along one side for the entire length of the blind. I cut off this strip from the entire length with a knife and a level as my straight edge. I imagine you could use a pair of scissors and it would turn out just fine as well. I did use a pair of scissors to snip the little plastic piece at the bottom of the blinds off. I also used a combination of scissors and knife to complete the cut at the top and around the metal tube. Once sliced, I just peeled the blind material right off the tube. This is also a good time to mark in the cut distance from the end of the metal tube. As long as we keep consistent with this measurement, all the measurements and relative dimensions of the blinds should stay the same. Next, I rolled up the blinds and went outside to cut all the metal pieces. You could use a grinder or a hacksaw, but I chose to use the miter saw because I'm lazy and my blade already had a good amount of wear on it. Whatever you use, just make sure you take appropriate safety precautions. Now it's time for reassembly. I started by sliding the metal pull bar back onto the bottom and tossing on the end cap. The damper needs to go in next. In the original end of the metal tube that I cut off, there were some metal grooves that held the damper in place. Since those have been removed, the damper will not function properly if it just spins free. I solved this issue by wrapping a few rolls of electrical tape around the damper to increase its diameter, and then I used some super glue to glue the damper into the metal tube. I did not use activator in case I got the blinds dirty with it. The glue will dry on its own, it'll just take a bit longer. I debated tossing a small screw through the tube and into the damper, but the superglue method has held up for 4 months, even with daily use. Next up is to reinstall the plastic bracket on the spring side. What you see me doing here is reinserting the X-shaped or the spring side plastic bracket and spinning it around a few times. What I'm doing is preloading the spring so that the blind will function properly. What I noticed the first time I reassembled the blind is that it wouldn't fully open. If that happens to you, all you have to do is pull the blind back apart and preload the spring like I'm doing here. You may or may not have to do this. It's really going to depend on your own situation and how much of the tension was lost during the disassembly process. Now, all it's left to do is fumble with all the parts and get them back together. It's a little tricky with one person, but I promise if I can do it, anyone can. While I try to get this back together, I just want to ask that if you're enjoying the content, then please subscribe to the channel and check out some of my other videos. Once it's all back together, install the mounting clips into your window if you haven't yet, and then clip the blinds in. You're going to see what will happen in a sec if the glue on the damper hasn't set yet, or the damper is free spinning. I went to close the blinds, and I was startled by how fast they snapped into place. Now that the glue is dry, you can see that the modified version closes at the same speed as the stock version I've installed on the window beside it. Again, you may need to play with the amount of preload on that spring in order to get it closing at the correct speed. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.